All right, everybody, welcome to episode 162 of the Fantasy Timeline. I'm with my main man, Drew, at DR_PRA. Drew, how you doing today?
Doing great. Can't wait
You,
for football to kick off.
man, it is a beautiful NFL Eve for us all. Usually we have a third. Bill's out this week. He's feeling under the weather. So, Bill, when you listen to this, hope you get better soon, man. So we can do the 3-man show that we normally do. But it's all good. Things happen. Drew and I are ready. So let's get into the news because there are some already. Week one, we haven't even played a game yet, and we're already starting to go through how do we reconfigure our lineup for missing players. So the first one on the list, it is official. Cooper Kupp will not be playing in week one. Let me ask you, Drew, do you have any Cooper Kupp shares?
In 20-some teams, I do not.
Yeah, so I don't have any either. So this is a tough one to talk about from a personal fantasy perspective because I have not been looking at Cooper Kupp as a guy who's going to do anything for me because he's not on any of my teams. But let's kind of take a high level look at this. Cooper Kupp is out for at least week one. There's even talk about the possibility that he goes on IR and misses 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just talk about week one. Who is the Ram that you're now looking to kind of lead the charge with Cooper Kupp out?
I've always had a soft spot for Van Jefferson, and I'm hoping Matthew Stafford does as well. So he's one that I've tried to see if he's available in a couple leagues. Outside of that, I've seen people talking about, maybe Tyler Higbee steps up and gets more targets in the meantime. But as far as the wide receivers go, I would be looking at Van Jefferson if I could go there. I know some other folks coming out of the rookie draft are thinking that Puka gets his chance now. But we'll see what happens there. How about you?
I will never advocate for anyone to do themselves the disservice of putting Tyler Higbee into their lineup unless they're absolutely with no other options. I'm a Puka guy, man. I mean, just watching that guy and listening to people who are way smarter than me on the subject, Puka Nacua seems to have all the physical traits that you want. Played at BYU, so maybe, there are a lot of people out there who are kind of like, well, I don't know who this guy really is. He played at, obviously it's a D1 school, but, it's not USC. It's not, Alabama. It's not Texas. It's not Georgia. So maybe we didn't see as many games. It's not Colorado. I just thought I'd throw that one in there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, none of the options right now going into week one are slam dunks. Oh, just throw player X in there. But if I have to start a Ram for some reason, I'm gonna roll the dice with Puka and see what happens. So that one's I think maybe a little tougher than the next one we'll talk about because none of the options seem like they're slam dunk options, and they're playing Seattle week one. Seattle had a pretty good defense last year, so that doesn't help matters either. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. But yeah, gun to my head, I got to make a pick. It's Puka. let's go. Let's see what happens with that. Now let's go to some more bad news, all right? Chiefs. Travis Kelce hyperextends his knee. He is being listed as questionable for tomorrow night's game. From medical people that I've heard, this seems like an injury where he could miss a week or two, but he's questionable. Who knows? Maybe he comes out there and plays, but let's make the assumption he doesn't, or he goes out there and plays and he's just not Travis Kelce because he hyperextended his knee. I'll pose the same question now, but with the Chiefs. Who is the guy that you go, okay, Travis Kelce's out. I'm going to put this guy in my lineup, and I think he's going to be the dude that shows out in week 1.
Man, that's tough. Don't love a lot of the options here. I would say the name that jumps out at me is possibly a Richie James after last year and how he flashed for the Giants, kind of came out of nowhere there and came up big for them in a couple of games. I'm not a huge Kadarius Toney fan. We know what MVS is. I think you were pretty supportive of Sky Moore last year. So I know he's a guy that may be on your radar. But Mahomes will have to improvise, which I think he's totally comfortable doing. We'll see. I expect it to be a fun game tomorrow night. I think this should be a high-scoring game. I know it's kind of a hit or miss each year in opening night how aggressive teams want to get, but you got to go back and remember that Jared Goff was a part of an epic game with the Chiefs a few years back, right? So I don't know that we'll get that same kind of outcome, but I think it'll be closer to that than a defensive struggle here. So, but if I'm picking somebody and somebody that's probably available, I might pick up Richie James, see what he does, maybe see if we can get a little value back for him after a good showing tomorrow night.
Yeah, you nailed the guy I'm going to talk about. I think the dude is Sky Moore. I'm with you 100%. I'm not a Kadarius Toney guy. I've been on this show plenty of times. The 2 blow-up games that he's had, I've told everybody, trade him for that first that somebody's willing to give you for some unknown reason. I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out in the pre-draft process. Obviously, that's kind of bared out to be true during his NFL career to this point. But Sky Moore, let's kind of look at what's going on here. They spent a second-round pick on Sky Moore. And I know based on what he did his rookie season, it doesn't seem like they spent a second-round pick on him, but they did. And I think this is kind of the opportunity for him to shine. Who else is out there? Kadarius Toney, who apparently is going to be limited due to an injury he was suffering through in camp. You have Justin Ross, you have Justin Watson, you have MVS. I mean, not a lot of guys that inspire a ton of confidence. And listen, if you look at what Sky Moore did last year, he doesn't inspire confidence either, but at least he has some draft pedigree. And hey, this is the game. If he doesn't, if Travis Kelce's out and he doesn't show up, it could be a real problem. But I agree with you on the shootout. Detroit's defense didn't stop anybody last year, and it looks like Chris Jones is not going to be playing in this game. Now, if you listen to this tomorrow and he signed a huge extension, disregard what I'm saying. But that defense is completely different without Chris Jones. I heard a stat today. They are first in quarterback pressure rate with him, 28th without him. And if you want to give Jared Goff some wind beneath his wings, let him just stand around and throw the ball in a clean pocket, not have to move around too much. That's where he's going to excel. So, that is that's going to be a big key. And I think, like I said, if unless you listen to this tomorrow and he signed a big contract extension, I think that defense is going to be a whole lot different for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kind of two news stories for two guys. Was there anything else that you heard, any other news you heard this week that you were kind of like, hey, let's make sure we bring this out to the people?
No, nothing big here. I think I'm still waiting to see if a couple of these guys like Kareem Hunt gets signed anywhere with some of the running back situations that have come up here. Everything leading up to week 1 is speculation until people have to submit a roster, the whistle blows, and we see who's on the field, who's not. Nothing else major there. Outside of, if you want to get into the drama a little bit, it looks like Denver might be a fun team to watch with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton trying to reconcile their approaches to this profession.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny what Russell Wilson has turned into since leaving Seattle. He was always a little cringe. He was always a little goofy. But then he played, and you were like, all right, well, the goofy guy can play ball, so we're not going to say much more about it. And then he kind of migrated down to Denver, and, now all of a sudden he can't play, and coaches are getting thrown under the bus, and coaches are fighting with them, and it's so weird. I don't know if a guy has gone from generally kind of like a nice, goofy guy maybe to like a villain in such a short period of time, but it's kind of turning into that now where it's like, don't get me wrong. I know Sean Payton hasn't made, a lot of friends, he's part of that Bountygate thing and all that, but it's crazy.
It's gonna be fun.
I mean, and what they've given up, what they gave up to trade for him, and then giving him in a contract. Oh man, that could be one of the worst trades. Last week we talked about Trey Lance and what you got for what you had to give up for Trey Lance, but at least Trey Lance. All right, he gave up 3 ones, and that's tough. You see what they turn into: Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Bradley Chubb. Oh, God, it sucks. All right, fine. But at least you didn't pay Trey Lance $250-something million. And I could be wrong about that number. I'm kind of trying to pull it from the memory bank to then come and stink it up. So, but hey, on some good news. We'll end the news on a good one, right? Jackson Smith-Njigba looks like he's going to play week 1. Looks like there's not any issue with JSN. So we'll see, again, kind of the other side of that Seattle Los Angeles Rams game. So that'll be fun. But Drew, I don't think we got any questions this week. That's fine. It sometimes happens. We're ready to pivot when we have to pivot. Let's talk about some trades, right? What are some of the trades we've got? And hey, got a couple people in here. If you're in a league with us and you wanna throw us a trade real quick, and we'll see what happens, right? I got one in a league that we're both in.
Okay.
Superflex Army 2. And I don't know what to do with this trade. Okay. I'm like stuck. So here's a trade. I would be giving up 1 David Njoku, and I would be receiving 1 Chig Okonkwo. Okay. Now, this is Superflex Army 2. I'm a contender in this league. And I don't know what to do. I I could make easy arguments for both sides of this trade, which I hate. I usually like to look at a trade and go, wow, I like this trade, or wow, I hate this trade. And I'm like, wow, I don't know what to do about this trade. So, Drew, what what are your thoughts on that? How are you looking at this?
Uh, I agree with Jerry here in the comments that I'd want to hang on to Njoku if you're a contender.
Okay.
I know there's the allure of what Chig Okonkwo could be. Uh, I think there's a lot of things up in the air with the Titans and their quarterback situation in the near term. That team in general is, I mean, just some of the decisions they've made in the last couple of years with, giving up AJ Brown to get up to Treylon Burks. I saw a meme online today. I'm local here in Tennessee, so it's I forget, it's a teammate basically, a fake caption, but you're telling me we gave up these linemen, gave up AJ, your true number one wide receiver, to get this rookie coming in here. We've not had a great history with veteran wide receivers bringing them in the last few attempts. Derrick Henry is aging and taking a lot of abuse. So without an established line, not a lot of continuity in the line this year, it's going to be tough sledding. So I don't know. I think it's pretty easy for me. I keep David Njoku with Watson, who's coming into first full season playing, has some good weapons there with Mari Cooper, with Elijah Moore. Great running back and efficient running back and Nick Chubb. So, you're looking at your team here. You have Gerald Everett as well, who could be usable if Okonkwo isn't what you hope he turns into being. But I think this is pretty straightforward for me. I'd hang on to David Njoku unless there is some kind of sweetener on top to give you a little bit of a way to hedge your bet there.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with you and Jerry. I'll keep Njoku. I'll let Papa Trees know that it was a close one, but I'm gonna stick with what I got. So here you go. I got a couple of trades that I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do with, but this is in the Timeline OG League.
Okay.
And Bill is usually my partner in crime, but he's sick. So I'm going to go over these trades with you. And if Bill didn't like him, he should have just rejected him right away. So now we get to talk about him. And if Drew can somehow change my mind on either one of these trades, I'll hit accept and Bill will kill me tomorrow. All right. So the first one, we would be giving up Devonta Smith and Pat Freiermuth. We would be getting Michael Pittman, Christian Watson, and Evan Ingram.
I know you and Bill are huge Pittman fans, so I don't know how you didn't accept already.
Yeah, well,
I mean that's quarters for dollars there.
Yep. I agree with you. All right, so that's trade number one. That was easy enough. So now we have a slight variation on the same trade. Bill and I would be giving up Devonta Smith and Pat Freiermuth again. But in this iteration of the trade, we would be getting Christian Watson, George Kittle, and a 2025 third-round pick.
Say that one more time.
Absolutely. We're giving up Smith and Freiermuth again.
Yep.
We would be getting Christian Watson, George Kittle, and a 2025 third-round pick.
The third doesn't mean anything to me in that So Kittle and Watson for Smith and Fryermuth.
Correct.
That's at least a little bit more intriguing, but I want Devonta Smith over uh, either of the guys you're getting back, and then Fryermuth for either one of for Pickett or for Pickett. I'm sorry, you said for Watson. Yeah, I that's at least closer. But I mean, it feels like it's just kind of switching out. Maybe you get a slightly better, higher ceiling on your tight end week to week to lower your ceiling on the wide receiver end. And I'll take the guy that's attached to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I'm with you. When I saw in both trades that Smith and Fryermuth were involved, I was expecting some big dollar signs on the other side, and just didn't get the big dollar signs. And hey, that's fine. They're interesting trades to me, and I always try to like look at what the other side is doing in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're interesting because none of the guys that we would be giving up have had a recent injury. No Travis Kelce here, no Cooper Kupp here. Nobody's gotten in trouble that I know of. So I get it when a Travis Kelce gets hurt and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'll give you a second. Everyone's trying to they send that deal out in every league and hope that one person takes it because they panic. And I get that. I understand it. This is one where,
I could see, if I were to counter, sorry to cut you off there, if I were to counter based on your team, I might try to package a guy we talked about last week, like a Jameson Williams back, depending on how you and Bill are feeling about him, instead of Devonta Smith. So if you send Jameson and Fryermuth to get an upgrade in Kittle perhaps, and then you have another young wide receiver who maybe produces points sooner. But that's probably the closest that I would land if I were in your seat.
Can I give you a hot take that some people would say is a lukewarm take? I don't think Fryermuth to Kittle is an upgrade. I think that they're probably gonna end up in that 7 to 10 range.
Yeah, I think I put Kittle a little higher. I think he's got top 5, a pretty good chance of being top 5 at the end of the year.
Do you think all right? Hey, I love this. So let's play a game, okay? Let's play a game. I'm bringing up some ADP, so let me do that real quick.
Okay.
And let's see if we really think that George Kittle ends up top 5. All right. I'm pulling it up. I got it here. Okay. The George's Kittle. All right. So, knee injury aside, Travis Kelce is one, right? Unless this knee injury turns into
sure. We're talking for the year,
6 weeks or something. He's number 1, right?
Yep.
Can we agree on Mark Andrews at number 2?
I would. Yes.
Okay. So we got 2 down already. All right. Number 3, ADP. Okay. I'm just going by ADP right now. TJ Hockenson. Just got paid. So obviously Minnesota is planning on using a little TJ Hockenson in their life. So TJ Hockenson at 3, or is there someone else that you look at and go, "Ooh, that could be 3"?
Are we talking? We're talking for this year, or we're talking like dynasty for this year?
For this year,
I could see him being there because I think it may take Addison a few weeks to kind of come on. So if Hawk's going to be the number 2 or maybe the 2A option in the pass game, I think they'll have enough volume there that he would justify number 3 pretty easily this year for tight end.
So we have 3. George Kittle comes in at 4, ADP wise. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to read you some guys that I think have at least a 50-50 shot to knock Kittle out of there. Everyone's offseason darling. Giants' number 1 receiver, Darren Waller. Do you think he could? All right. So
we got the top 3 sorted out. So we're looking at who do we think will be 4 and 5?
And I think just based on kind of the ragtag bunch, I'll be politically correct, that they have in New York, I think there's a really good chance, barring injury, that Darren Waller can have a better season than George Kittle. Let's head to Philadelphia again, since we talked about Devonta Smith so much. Dallas Goedert. Do you think he is a better pickup than George Kittle?
I struggle there.
Okay.
I think they're in a very similar range. I think we're both talking like a similar tier here. Maybe I've expanded mine a little higher up the rank than you have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the guys that we're talking about between Kittle, Waller, Goddard, probably I would throw Freiermuth toward the bottom of that tier for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of group, I think they could all rotate between 4 and 7. I think Freiermuth is topped out at probably 6 or 7. I don't think he cracks the top 5. I think Kittle has a better chance to crack the top 5 over him.
Now here's a guy that should be top 5, has the ability to be top 5, but I don't think it's going to be top 5, and that's Kyle Pitts. I just think, unfortunately, for all the chances they've had to figure things out at quarterback, they haven't.
Nope.
And I think that's going to limit him. So actually, I wouldn't argue putting Kittle above Pitts, but I think Waller and Goddard are there. I think Waller and Goddard, trying to say that real fast, I think they both take out Kittle, which then drops Kittle to 6. And then Freiermuth is the next guy up, which is why I'm saying I think Freiermuth and Kittle are like that 7 to 10. Like, they'll be in there somewhere. And, maybe, Kittle is 7 and Freiermuth is 10. But, like, is that an upgrade? Once you break it down points-wise, is that a real upgrade?
Yeah, let me look here. So if we're talking about like season long, and again, this is why we have different ways to look at it, right? The per game and what you could get out of the tight end when they play. Again, if we level everything for injuries and so forth. Last year, Freiermuth is averaging just over 11 points a game, and Kittle's averaging over 15 a game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think when you look at where Kittle's ceiling is, because of what they do in San Francisco, where does he fall in the pecking order of pass catchers for you there?
Let's see. It's probably the number 2 guy there because it's probably Deebo. Well, let me take that.
It's probably coming on, right?
He's the 3 guy because it's Deebo, McCaffrey,
Okay.
So he's probably the 3 guy. Because I know we heard that whole song and dance from Shanahan that they're going to rest them. And the second they get into a game that they need some points, Christian McCaffrey is playing all those snaps. So they have their own contract situation with Nick Bosa. Is Brock Purdy really that dude? We saw it for 7-8 games last year. He won them all. I can't say nothing bad about what he did last year, but he's coming off of a big injury and he was a 7th round pick for a reason. So let's see in year 2 if year 2 looks like year 1, because then it might be the Sam Darnold experience And he's the backup. I'm just saying, like, he's the backup. I don't make the rules. I just report the news. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if Brock Purdy stumbles or gets hurt again, like, it's a Sam Darnold experience. And
that's
like,
a shit show.
I mean, and don't get me wrong. I don't think the Kenny Pickett experience, I know he's got some hype during the preseason and everything. I don't think the Kenny Pickett experience is that much better, but I do think it's a little bit better. So now, Pat Freiermuth, let's, you know me, I'm going to keep it honest. Pat Freiermuth is what, the third guy? He, it's Deontay, it's Pickens, it's Pat Freiermuth. And some people might even argue it's 3A and 3B because you got Najee there. Now we'll see what happens with Najee, and that rookie year he did everything, and last year I think almost kind of paid for it. But we'll see now that there's more pass catchers around if they're really going to be relying on Najee like that. But look, and here's my thing too. When Kittle's on the field, he's great. He's not on the field all the time.
Barring injury.
Sure, barring injury, but we kind of have to, take a little bit into account, like, hey, we see something season over season, kind of like Trey Lance, 49ers season after season saw a guy not playing on their team and they shipped his ass out. So, I mean, we got to kind of take that into account, where it's like, hey, he scored, 15 points per game last year. And it's like, what did he play in 8 games? Like, it all depends on, would you rather have 11 points a game for, 14 games or 15 points a game for 8 games? It's like, and I'm not looking up what our boy George Kittle played last year. I'm just using it as an example. But, he has a very consistent injury history. So, and actually a few years ago, he had a very similar injury to what Travis Kelce has right now, and he missed 2 weeks. So I'm not saying Travis Kelce is missing 2 weeks. I'm just saying he had a very similar injury a few years ago and missed 2 weeks. So that's kind of where I'm like, even if George Kittle is 5 and Pat Freiermuth is like 7, like, is that, like last year it was 4 points a game, but I wonder what the total points were.
Yeah, part of it is looking at your team here. You guys are in a place where you could shoot for some upside though too, because you've got Hawkinson, you've got Juwan Johnson, who might be something. You've got Schoonmaker, however you say his name, which I think people have some expectations for. So when you look at for you guys trying to turn that corner into like top contender this year, having the ceiling of what Kittle can bring, if I were in your seat, that would be worth going back and forth for me and seeing how low could I go on my wide receiver list to make that happen. Because Freiermuth, he's never going to have. Maybe once in his career, he'll have where he will be the tight end 1 that week. He might catch 3 touchdowns 1 week. But Kittle has that week in and week out ability to be the tight end 1 any given week he plays.
And obviously having Hawkinson helps. But I guess my issue is that if Kittle misses as much time as he does, I've pretty much now given up the roster spot because I don't have, well, you're saying adjust the wide receiver, but if I traded Devonta Smith, now he's on another team, and I don't have either one of them. So
I'm talking going down. If you could go down to, Jameson Williams, who is a question mark. I know we all love Elijah Moore. But if he's low, depending on where he ranks for you all on your dynasty rankings and your wide receiver, again, you guys are deep at the wide receiver position too, so you could try to make some choices if that was an attractive option for you.
I can make a joke here that we would literally need a Godfather offer to trade Elijah Moore because we've rejected so many Elijah Moore trade offers that at this point we just got to see if it works out in I almost said Baltimore, then I almost said Cincinnati, Cleveland. But yeah, like we would almost need like a first and a second.
Speaking of which, let's segue here. I've got a recent trade that I did in Superflex Army 2 as well that involved Elijah Moore.
Yes.
And I know I was messaging you and Bill a little bit trying to talk through some of these options, and I am trying to join your club as a contender in this league after 2 years of wallowing in the depths and earning the 101 and the 102. So I ended up making a trade with John Bauer the other night.
Yeah.
If you remember last week, I was looking at his roster, my roster, just thinking about swapping maybe some rookie running backs and some later picks and stuff. But ultimately, we got something done where I sent Devin Achane and my 2024 first, which I hope is going to be later now.
Yep.
I feel pretty confident it'll at least be in the last half of the draft in the 14-team league.
Mm-hmm.
And then from John Bauer, I got DeAndre Swift and our boy Elijah Moore. What are your initial thoughts there?
So I think I'm gonna put this in quote, you lose the trade. But it's not like, oh my God, you got hosed, you're an idiot, you did something completely that nobody else would ever think of doing. Achane, don't like him. Didn't like him pre-draft. Everyone got hype on him because it's Miami. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's do that. He's hurt. I think he's gonna play, but like we're talking about, my name is Jeff playing as the starter. We're talking about undrafted free agent Chris Brooks is going to get some burn. We're talking about all these guys, and sure, maybe week 5, Salvon Ahmed comes back, and who else is injured and not playing? Somebody else.
I mean, Mostert's there, right?
Raheem Mostert, all these guys, maybe they come back, maybe they don't. Achane gets healthy and he takes over. But did Miami ever believe in him? They tried to get Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook went to New York and got more money. Apparently, there was some trade talk about, Jonathan Taylor. Apparently, the Jalen Waddle price was too high. But they've been trying to bring guys in. And this was after they drafted Achane. This wasn't, hey, beforehand, before the draft, we tried to see what was going on. But then we got Devin Achane and we were cool. So I like that move because I personally don't think Achane is ever going to be a guy. I think that Miami, maybe they sign Kareem Hunt. Maybe they sign Lombardi Lenny. Maybe they don't sign either one of those guys. They roll with what they have for this year. And then what happens next year during the offseason? Does a high-priced free agent come about? They try to get that guy. Do they draft another guy in the second round? I'm not buying the long-term prospects just based off of what the team has told me this offseason. Okay. The first is where I go, and I get your point of view. Hey, man, it's going to be the 10, the 11, something like that. Maybe it's the 14. Maybe you did it. And by the way, I love the other trade you made, getting the wide receivers. So this isn't like a joke. Like, you could win. You stack things in your favor to win this thing. You can't beat my team, but we'll gloss over that right now. But then you get DeAndre Swift and our boss, the guy who signs the check for us, Dynasty Outhouse, Russ Fisher, always reminds me that when DeAndre Swift came out before the draft, I made the mention about Kerryon Johnson. Remember when Kerryon Johnson was a thing? And I said, DeAndre Swift could go to Detroit. And he said to me at that time, this is obviously pre-draft, he said, don't put that out there. Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. And then sure enough, DeAndre Swift does get drafted to Detroit. And Russ, I think, DM'd me or something. I can't remember how he got a hold of me. And he said, it was because you said it. And I was like, I love DeAndre Swift at that time. But my man can't stay healthy. My man, when he's out there, he's great. He's George Kittle, but worse, because I think he plays less. I think he plays less games than George Kittle. But when he's out there, he's a monster. But what are we going to get? 5 games this year of Philly DeAndre Swift? So that part bothers me. And then I love Elijah Moore, but I think A-Chain and Swift kind of negate each other, and then you have a first for Elijah Moore. That's where I go, I think I would rather have the first. But let's face it, how many times have we talked about trades? A week, a month, a year later. We're completely on the other side of the trade now because things have happened. And I think if Elijah Moore kind of lives up to the hype that he's been given during this offseason, and this Cleveland offense turns into this juggernaut with Cooper and Moore and Nick Chubb, David Njoku, we could be saying, oh, you only gave up, pick 11 for Elijah Moore? Oh, that's a deal, man. There's only 10 guys we like in the first round this year, because that's going to happen in about 6 months.
Sure.
Right now there's 20 guys that can go in the first round. And then, by February, there's only 6 guys we like. So, but that's my hesitation. But it's not so bad where I'm like, Drew, you made a massive mistake. You really crippled your team. I just think I don't think that's a trade I would do, but that's what makes this game so much fun, is that I would do trades that you would look at and say, Josh is crazy. Why did he do that? And I look at a trade like this and I go, God, this isn't a trade I would do. But listen, if you end up with the chip at the end of the year and Elijah Moore is a top 12 receiver,
all's forgiven.
Trade, I'm like, God, this guy doesn't know what I'm talking about. And by the way, I don't know what I'm talking about, so you should never listen to me. But I just give my opinion. But you know what? We got one here. Let's give our opinion on this from the All-in-One show. He's got Diggs, Higgins, and Godwin as his wide receiver 1, 2, and flex. I don't like that. Yeah, it's Keenan. I'm assuming that's Keenan Allen and Allen Lazard on my bench. Would y'all consider either of those two to plug into the lineup? All right, so Allen Lazard, he could keep his happy ass on the bench. We're not even going to talk about him. Drew, I think you agree with me on that. Keenan Allen is the interesting one here, I think, right? Because he's the guy that we look at and we go, okay, he could be that flex guy. All right, so I'm doing some producing on the fly here, and I am going to pull up the schedule here, and we're going to look at this and see who these guys are playing, right? Because I don't have the schedule memorized. So Chris Godwin is up against that vaunted Vikings defense, and that is obviously a joke. The Vikings defense was not good last year. And we have Keenan Allen. Let me find it. Oh, Keenan Allen up against the I'm going to start first here. I think I'm going to lean towards putting Keenan Allen in, taking Chris Godwin out. First of all, I like everything around Keenan Allen more than I like everything around Chris Godwin. I mean, Justin Herbert, greater sign Baker Mayfield. I don't think that's a hot take. Um, they have Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. And if we saw anything in Dallas, it was that they threw the ball a lot. So I believe they're going to have the same mindset and the same mentality. So obviously you want a quarterback that's going to throw the ball a lot. You want one of those receivers because especially when that receiver just happens to be the number one receiver on the team. And I think we can say that pretty confidently. Mike Williams is fine, but he's not a number one. Quentin Johnson may be the number one day. I personally don't think so, but he's not right now. We could have an argument, Baker Mayfield or not, between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is the number one on that Buccaneers team. So give me the clear number one with the better quarterback, with the better offensive mind, put him in the flex. And, we could see kind of that shootout that we saw between what are their names? The Dolphins and the Ravens last year. And we could see that happen again with Los Angeles and Miami. What do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting group here. I initially went to Keenan and Godwin as well. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on potentially, again, you have the clear number one here in Keenan Allen. Would you ever look at replacing T. Higgins with Burrow coming back from an injury, maybe not throwing quite as much if they're going to try to ease him back in a little bit, hand the ball off some more? It should be a good game because they're playing the Browns. So it should be what looks like on paper two pretty high-powered offenses. So you'd think there'd be enough to go around where Higgins would get his targets and possibly score this week. I could see the debate between all three of these. I do think I would definitely want Keenan over Godwin, and I'm pretty sure I'd want Higgins over Godwin as well. So I think I agree with you at the end of the day, but that was the only other thought that kind of entered my mind as I was looking through kind of where these guys rank on their team and who they're playing.
Yeah, if Burrow's out there, I'm assuming that Burrow is going to be his normal self, and that could be a shootout too if both those offenses are clicking on all cylinders, which only helps T. Higgins out. Drew, I gotta step away for 1 second. I'll be right back, but you can give any other info you want on this one.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have a whole lot of extra here. I would definitely be interested to see how Lazard does. Josh and I were actually talking about him before we got on the show because it looks like the Jets are continuing to work out some more veteran wide receivers. But so I might consider seeing if there's somebody else on waivers maybe that we like a little bit better than Lazard until we see what happens here. But that should be a fun game as well. For those of you who aren't watching or haven't listened before, I'm a Buffalo fan through and through. It's where I grew up, was Western New York. So week one, Monday night with the Jets and the Bills should be very interesting to see how Rodgers does in the new system there with a couple of familiar faces. And then if you've been watching Hard Knocks at all, it seems like he and Garrett Wilson have started to really form a bond there. So I saw somebody on Twitter, I don't know if they were joking or how serious they were, thinking that Garrett Wilson may quickly earn the Devontae Adams treatment with just a ridiculous number of targets week in and week out, which I know he's another of Josh's favorite guys here. So, but as far as this one goes, all in one show, I think you're asking the question for a reason. So Josh and I definitely are on the same page that it makes more sense to take Keenan, who is with Justin Herbert, who you've seen do it over and over again, start off healthy in the season and, probably be a target monster this first few weeks here. So I don't know if we have anything else. I don't see anything else in the chat here, Josh. Do you have any
Well,
other trades that are waiting for you? I've got one other in a trade addicts league that I'm in that I can throw up here if you want to give me
yeah, let's do it.
your initial thoughts. So this league, I knew I took over an orphan year one, so I knew I was going to be rebuilding for a bit. But this past rookie draft, I drank the Kool-Aid a bit and probably overspent to get myself a first round pick this year to grab one Dalton Kincaid and add him to my tight end grouping because I was very weak there. I think Noah Fant was my best tight end that I had on this team at that point. But with a couple of other, I've got Trevor Lawrence, I've got Jimmy G while he's healthy. I do have Kenny Pickett as well. So I felt pretty good at quarterback, but I'm looking for some running back depth to really try to make this trade worthwhile and hopefully push the pick that I gave up next year back a little bit. So I've got Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke sitting on my roster as well. And I'd love to move those guys because I'm not a huge Desmond Ritter fan. I don't think a lot of folks are. But I've got a partner here, a potential partner. We've been going back and forth a little bit. So he's offering me Deion Jackson, Kendre Miller, Darius Slayton, and a couple of thirds next year for this pair of quarterbacks in Atlanta. What are your thoughts?
It's kind of sad that the piece I like the most is Taylor Heineke. So what is your QB room if you accept this trade?
So if I accept this, I would be down to Jimmy G, Trevor Lawrence, Kenny Pickett, and then a couple of other backups.
Okay, so obviously it's not the best quarterback room anyone's ever seen, but it's definitely not bad by any stretch. I mean, those three guys, could be, all three of them could be top 15 this year. So it's not that's not terrible. I'm staying away from Colts running backs right now just because I don't think that Indianapolis likes any of them. To be honest, they're going to have to use guys because they don't have Jonathan Taylor. But, Shane Steichen coming over from Philadelphia, I feel like is going to do a very Philadelphia thing, and we're going to see 4 guys getting rotated in depending on down and distance. Are we by the goal line? Do I need a blocker? What's the, and nobody is going to be worth much because they don't have a guy that's as talented as Miles Sanders on that team right now. They don't have a guy. Honestly, I don't even think they got a guy as talented as Kenny Gainwell on that team right now. So
questionable.
That, Kendre Miller, the hype was high with him. Obviously, we were kind of like, hey, we know that Alvin Kamara is going to get himself in some trouble. He's going to be suspended for some amount of games. Kendre Miller to the moon. And Kendre's been hurt, twice during the preseason, right?
Yeah. Didn't practice today.
Yeah, so I feel like it's going to be the Jamal Williams show until Alvin Kamara gets back. And the Jamal Williams show is a pretty damn entertaining show, whether it's what he does on the field or whether it's, any kind of interview that anyone does for him. It's a pretty damn entertaining show. So I don't know where Kendre Miller fits into that. Maybe, kind of the same thing we talked about earlier. Week 2, week 3, all of a sudden Kendre Miller is that dude. But even when DeAndre Swift was healthy in Detroit last year, Jamal Williams had a role and a pretty significant role. I mean, he had 714 touchdowns last year. So
ridiculous.
And I think that's gonna stay the same in New Orleans. Even once Alvin Kamara comes back, I think Jamal Williams is going to have a role. So that's where I kind of am like, I get. Can I ask a philosophical question here?
Sure.
Why do you feel you need running back depth in a league where you only start one running back?
The only running back that I can start right now is Jahmyr Gibbs on this team.
Oh, really? You have nothing else?
So I have Tyler Algier, who maybe gets a few touches a game early on.
Yeah, he done.
Myles Gaskin.
Okay, he's not even playing.
Samaje Perine.
Okay, well, all right.
Maybe get a little bit of run out of him.
You buried the lead.
James Robinson, still hanging on to the roster spot.
Yeah, I heard he worked out somewhere. I can't remember where though now.
Indy.
He might be a number one running back there.
And then I've got Sean Tucker, Syracuse alum.
Okay, now Sean Tucker might end up being the dude by week 5, week 6.
We'll see. And then I've got Zamir White, who I had flashes of hope for as long as Jacobs was waiting to sign. But so I've got a couple guys that are, an injury or an event away from being there. So I'm not looking to sell the farm to get stuff, but I'm also I don't know that I'm waiting. Like Sam Howell, I've had on a couple rosters, and I'm waiting to see how he does, and hoping and expecting him to gain a little bit of value in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah,
there's part of me that's wondering.
I'm so pissed you revoked that trade in Superflex for me too. Pretty mad about that.
But I don't feel the same way around Desmond Ridder. In fact, I feel a little bit the opposite. I'm concerned that he's going to lose most of his value pretty early once he gets into the real game here, outside of handing off to Bijan.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had little hope for both coming into this season. I think Sam Howell has raised his stock, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not anointing Sam Howell as the, commander / whatever they change their name to next year for the next 10 years. I'm not doing that. But if you told me I had to put money, right now on which one of those two guys is going to be starting for their team in 3 years, I would put all the money on Sam Howell.
Yeah.
And, technically Desmond Ridder has more NFL experience than Sam Howell. And I still, with that bigger sample size, did not see anything that I was super impressed with, which is another reason why, like we spoke about earlier, I'm down on Kyle Pitts because Desmond Ridder is the quarterback. But you have Jahmyr Gibbs, which sucks because I need a running back type guy this offseason has been David Montgomery. Like, can I throw you a late second for that David Montgomery? Most people are like, yeah, get this dude off my team. He stinks, even though he's been pretty good his whole career.
He's been serviceable, yeah.
I think he's been better than serviceable. I think we have this weird delusion about David Robinson, old NBA center. But we have this delusion that he's just been David Montgomery's never been good. He's been okay. He's been fine. He's been pretty good if you break it down. Not elite, not Hall of Fame, not giving you any of that. But can I give you a late second for a guy who's probably going to be top 24 this year? Okay, cool. Like, give it to me. Another guy that I like that I think would cost you less, Antonio Gibson. I'm not all in on this on the Brian Robinson experiment. And if Scary Terry is not 100% or he gets hurt again, they got to throw the ball to somebody besides Jahan Dotson. Some of those can go to Antonio Gibson. And remember, those passes were going to J.D. McKissick, who has retired. So that's another guy who could cost you less and I think give you more than Kendre Miller, give you more than oh God, who was the other guy that was in that trade?
Deion Jackson.
So those are the guys that I would maybe try to, try to go after,
Yeah.
I think for most people, Desmond Ridder would get you either one of those guys by himself. And you probably have just based on general perception, you have the right to ask for something else with those guys for Desmond Ridder, because Desmond Ridder, he's a starting quarterback in a super flex league, and and those guys, they stink, And I feel a lot more confident in Montgomery than Gibson. But I also think if you traded Ridder for Gibson, you could ask for more on top of Gibson.
Yeah.
So if you don't agree with me and you believe in Brian Robinson, he's another guy that's probably going to cost you, that late second,
Yeah.
So
I forgot about my taxi spot here. I do have Tank Bigsby and Roschon Johnson sitting there, but I don't know what to expect from them.
So I think you say no to this trade. Let's see what materializes from, the couple guys we talked about, the Samaje Perines of the world, those rookies. Because let's face it, I do this all the time. I even do this on the waiver wire. If you're top 3 on a depth chart at running back, and I have just like a wasted space or an empty space, I'm going to pick you up, because we've seen it. Some of the guys we have to rely on at the end of a season at the running back position, because it's just a battlefield at that position. I mean, we talked about this. I think it was last week. We brought up the name C.J. Anderson, who wasn't on a roster and then came on a team. Mm-hmm. Recently retired Sony Michel, doing the same thing, not on a team or getting traded to a team. And all of a sudden, week 15, you're like, oh, God, Sony Michel is a great option. And week 1, you would have said, oh, Sony Michel is disgusting. I'm never touching him. And then week 15, he's this big bar of gold that you're putting in your lineup. So I would wait and see what materializes, because let's face it, I love Javonte Williams, but he's coming off of a crazy knee injury in a crazy time frame, and it could be too much too soon. And all of a sudden, Samaje Perine, starter for the Denver Broncos, and you're like, okay, here's some depth. Tank Bigsby was getting some hype a couple weeks ago. What if that hype was real, and all of a sudden we see Tank Bigsby getting some interesting timeshare opportunities. Roschon, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to say Roschon is going to be the starter by the beginning of October.
Okay,
it will happen. I'm just saying that if I tell you that story, you're not going to say that I'm crazy. It's not like me saying Deuce Vaughn will be the number 1 for the Dallas Cowboys by October. That's crazy. Barring injury, that's crazy. But Roschon, you go, okay, I can see it. It's Khalil Herbert. It's, some other guys that have had flashes that have done well here and there, but have not, been that guy for a long period of time. So I think you have some interesting possibilities. And obviously you have Jahmyr Gibbs, which you should be able to ride out barring injury for, at least the first month of the season. Then you can reassess. If you're 3-1 and none of those other guys materialize, Javonte is a beast. Samaje is not doing anything. Travis Etienne is a beast. Tank Bigsby's not doing anything. Roshan just can't get on the field. All right. Now you can say, all right, where, is the Antonio Gibson manager 1-3 or 0-4? Here, man, here's a third. Go with God. Like, have fun with this. And they'll probably be like, yeah, I'm just trying to pick up picks and young guys and, yeah, have this running back, because if you do rebuilds like I do rebuilds, you're usually picking running backs off your team as soon as humanly possible. And you said that I might be mixing up your leagues. Do you have JT in this league?
I don't know.
Okay, that was a different league you were talking about. That's fine. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure, because I was going to say, if you have JT, I really won't worry about this.
Yeah, but I'd be holding on.
But yeah, let it simmer. You're gonna be. I mean, let's face it. Neither one of those guys, Kendre Miller, Deion Jackson, it's not like you're throwing them into your lineup week 1. If you hit accept, it's Jahmyr Gibbs all the way until something else happens. Injury, mixed, little shake up in the depth chart, something. So he's your guy until the bye week.
Yeah.
See what materializes. I don't think there's a single reason to pick up a couple of unknowns for a quarterback. And I get it is Desmond Ridder. I don't like the guy either. But I think him being a starting quarterback does give him some value. I think it gives him a little bit more value than 2 unknowns at running back. So
that's right.
That's just one man's very long-winded piece on that. Do you have any other trades, or should we wrap this up and go home and go to sleep?
That's all I've got.
All right, cool.
One more sleep.
One more. Football tomorrow, man. It's going to be crazy. I hope Travis Kelce plays, but even if he doesn't, we've been waiting for this since the middle of February. So congratulations to everybody who made the wait, and we get the real thing tomorrow. So obviously, thank you, Drew, for coming on. I'll say it one more time, Bill. Hope you feel better, brother. Thank you to everybody in the chat. It was a good one today. A lot of fun. Thank you to everybody who's going to catch us in the podcast forum or on YouTube. We appreciate it. Obviously, leave comments, leave your 2 cents. Let us know how we can do better. And next time we come back on, we're going to be talking about real, actual regular season games. All right, Drew, appreciate you again, brother. And
likewise,
let's get out of here.
Late.